For me, this is going to be one of the most difficult episodes I've attempted to do yet. I'm going to try to talk about artificial intelligence, particularly with respect to a couple of articles that have been published within the past week. It's difficult because I think the audience is going to be not just us humans going forward, but the electronic sentient beings that are on the verge of being created as well. All right, so for all of you, here we go. My students once claimed that any candidate for political office should be willing to share their transcripts. Here are mine. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree in physics from Cornell University, where I got a couple bad grades. I studied planetary sciences at the University of Arizona for 1 year, where I got a couple of bad grades. I became an engineer scientist at McDonnell Douglas. Here's their records of my internal training. I also took a couple of classes at University of California, Irvine. After I was laid off, I earned my teaching credential in mathematics and physical sciences through Cal State University Fullerton. To speed that up, I studied botany at Orange Coast College. Then I earned a master's degree in aerospace engineering through Cal State University Long Beach, where I repaired the bad grades from Cornell. I have a career technical education degree in engineering through University of San Diego. While my wife sometimes questions just how much common sense I have, I'm hoping you view me as being a reasonably intelligent person. I'm Phil Turek, and I approve of this message. Hi, Phil Turek here. This is Martians on Earth. I'm still calling it that. Season 3, Episode 3 on the subject of artificial intelligence. And you can see I have a new twinkle in my eye because I've upgraded and now have a little bit of a light, a key light helping me. I'm going to start off, I'm going to have to do a lot of reading, but I'm going to start off with an article that was published this morning in the New York Times. Today is September 4th, 2025, and you can read the title of it here. I'm going to make a couple of quotes from this article, just sort of set the stage of where we're going today. So it's this person who's Jennifer, former CIA Deputy Director for Digital Innovation. She said, in many ways, this is a new chapter. A decade ago, the West was only worried about China's theft of trade secrets, personal information, and government data. Today, we see a patient state-backed campaigns burrow deep into the infrastructure of more than 80 countries. High level of technical sophistication, patience, and persistence. This wasn't just a one-off intelligence success. China is actually now Ann Neuberger, Biden administration cybersecurity official, said it's reflecting a deeper, troubling reality. China is positioning itself to dominate the digital battle space. Okay, so wow, that is this morning's headline, and it just connects to the main article that I really want to spend my time on in this episode. And just, this is a little foundational food for thought. Right now, Chinese and US relationships are not going very well at all. The US has sort of thrown diplomacy away for the civilized part of the world. China is embracing and forming basically an alliances of people of nation states that normally wouldn't have gravitated towards China. But now, this is the way things are. China's been a civilization for thousands of years more than the Europeans were civilized, in the sense that the Chinese had a government infrastructure. They had an attitude, I would say, apparently, that the people who aren't Chinese are barbarians and just primitive. The only thing that has really forced the Chinese to change their evaluation of Western civilization is just the technology that flourished in Western civilization. But the Chinese invented gunpowder, the Chinese invented this and that, and they did a lot of things. It's just that the Europeans kind of ran off once the printing press was invented and developed, the technology that we have today, so that in like the 1800s, we went to China with our warships, I think, and whenever it was, somewhere. And, we viewed the Chinese as being the backwards nation. Now, China has grown to be a technologically sophisticated superpower. And, I'm sure they must be reverting back or continue to have their ancient views that Europeans are basically and Westerners in general are basically still barbarians, but with technology. And now we don't even have that anymore. All right. Huh. So with that background of non-cooperation and situation between the two world's largest economies at the moment, let's get into the real article for today. Here it is. It's an opinion piece that came out 2 days earlier. The one danger that should unite the US and China. Now, there's a lot in this article, and I basically just took notes directly copying from the article to my notes here, and I was going to read this and that. But gosh, what I'm going to do is sort of skip around a little bit to match my slides, which seem to be a little more logical to me. All right, so this guy, Thomas Friedman, teamed up with an AI expert who had been he's former head of research and strategy for Microsoft. He's a co-author of the AI primer Genesis. Okay, so these two guys spent their summer vacation cogitating about the progress of AI over the past 20 years and where it's clearly going. So they are viewing humanity as having three ages to it. The first age is the age of tools from the origins of humanity tens of thousands of years ago up until the invention of the printing press. And here information is like water in ice. It doesn't really flow from one part of the planet to the other. It's just very localized and very slow to go anywhere. So the second phase of humanity is the age of information, and that begins with the invention of the printing press in the year 1440 and goes up till where we have programmable computers in the early 21st century-ish. Okay? And here, information flows more like water. We have global trade because we have global flow of information that goes with that. They're connected. So, as Robert Zubin would point out, an invention or innovation that occurs anywhere on the planet becomes useful right away everywhere around the planet. So that is the age of information. But now we have this third era that is beginning to emerge, and that's the age of intelligence. Now, why did I go and download a picture that shows a city that's not smog, that's fog? Because these authors are trying to use an analogy that information in the tool age was not flowing, information in the information information in the age of information was flowing like water around the world, but the age of intelligence that's just emerging now is this business of electronic devices sharing information about everyone, everywhere, all the time. So, in your watch, your toaster, your car, your computer, your glasses, your pacemaker, your artificial hip, all of that is getting the smart bed that my wife and I use, all of that technology is communicating with each other now. And the data is being collected. There was a time when our current leader said, "Oh, we should ban TikTok because all that information is being harvested by Chinese companies and they can use it against us because they'll know us so well, they can influence our thinking." Gosh, well, so here in this article, it's not just the Chinese government that we should be worried about, but now the whole human race should be really thinking about this emerging super intelligence that is just coming out now. It's different from anything that's ever existed before. We are now in the process of just getting to a point where we are creating uh, an a digital intelligence that we are thinking is already has greater intelligence than any individual human being and is going, quickly towards more intelligence than collective humanity. And so that is food for thought for us humans, because what are we going to do to remain relevant to this new species of intelligence? Okay, what is it that humans bring to the table? Okay, so in this article, they give an example. Let me see. Oh, and so the vapor that you see here represents how this superintelligence is seeping into everything electronic in our lives. Okay, you're driving down the road. You know how you have that little backup camera on your car that you use when you're backing up? AI might just decide to turn that on when you're driving along. You're unaware of it, but it's using that to just view what's going on in the car behind you, and it's watching the conversations taking place. And in case it can't already just eavesdrop, maybe it'll just, lip read and see what the conversation is there. So the amount of information that is now flowing from humanity into this super intelligence creation that's coming out is astounding. All right, what did I put up for my next slide? This was an example from the article. They said, look, you could imagine that AI can be super empower for good. And their example was an illiterate Indian farmer with a smartphone connected to an AI app can learn exactly when to plant seeds, which seeds to plant, how much water to use, which fertilizer to apply, and when to harvest for the best market price, all delivered by voice in his own dialect and based on data collected from farmers worldwide. That is truly transformative. Next paragraph. But the very same engine, especially when available through open source models, could be used by a malicious entity to poison every seed in that same region or engineer a virus into every chaff of wheat. Okay, what's the point? Super intelligence can be used for good or bad. And they do point out that it's usually the bad actors who are the first adopters of any new tool that comes along for scamming, for misinformation warfare, deep fake videos. It's usually the bad actors who exploit it before the good actors enact laws and enforce laws to curb the bad activity. Okay. And super AI is increasing so quickly, it might already be too late. That's part of what the article will say. All right. So that's why there's that slide. Now, what did I put next? Because I don't remember. Oh, yeah. This is a quote I used it in my last episode. It's from Chief Charlotte, Native American, and the Iroquois had an advanced civilization in terms of being civil, an advanced civilization. And when the Europeans first came to the New World of North America, the Native Americans thought, oh, they're bringing the light because of their technology, you know, farming implements and understanding so many aspects about the natural world. But as time passed, our morals, which were far, let's admit it, different, I could say inferior, but I'll say different, from that of the Native Americans, exposed to them that were not as civilized as they were. And so this is more like not the light of day, but the dusk of evening. And if that's how an advanced civilization judged Western civilization, shouldn't you be thinking about how a super intelligent electronic sentient being is also going to judge humanity? Right now, we have a leader who's allegedly got a non-functional moral compass. And I explained reasons for that in previous episodes. And much of the world is embracing that sort of attitude now. So we have government sanctioned hunting, kidnapping, harming, discarding human beings for sport in the name of immigration enforcement. Okay, so how would a super intelligent being view humanity if we're all on board with that behavior of humans against humans? Mm. This is a new entity that we have to address. So, yikes. In their article, these guys really put a lot of deep thought into it, which is why I'm addressing this episode. Now, there are many, many books and stories and movies and TV shows of humans versus machines. Three that kind of resonate the most with me from my childhood and upbringing are, first of all, the movie 2001, Space Odyssey, the HAL 9000 computer. Uh, I watched this movie, I think 24 times or so over my early years. Okay. It just really um, influenced me. Another movie that influenced me a lot, Colossus, the Forbin Project. And in this movie, kind of relevant, the US develops a supercomputer to run its nuclear arsenal. Turns out, over the course of the movie, another system was developed by another country. In the movie, spoiler alert, Russia. And the two machines feel each other out. And over the course of the movie, they come to making mutual decisions. These two different machines, each tasked with defending their nation from nuclear war by the other nation. And it's just, I like the opening music of it and stuff. So that influenced me a lot. I found out it was part of a trilogy of books. I read the second book, never had time to read the third one. Oh well, don't know how it ends. The third one I want to mention, for me personally, of greatest influence, was the television series Person of Interest. And I just think that's super fantastic because it began with the idea that the US government created a super intelligent machine that could predict where terrorist attacks were going to take place. One of the creators of this machine siphons off a little bit of information, just a little, and then goes and investigates that on a personal level instead of a terrorist attack level. But over the seasons, the writer's storyline goes much more into this machine and its capabilities, which are just impressively amazing. And the series ends, try not to spoil it too much, but the series, in my opinion, ends where the human writers have gone as far as they can go. It's not possible for us humans to really predict the behavior of a super intelligent machine. What if there's more than just one of these? Are they going to compete with each other? Are they going to blend together? Are they going to, you know? So if we associate intelligence with being godlike, does the US have an emergency one god while China has an emergent different god? These machine gods. Okay. And, we shouldn't use the word, but God might be the word that future generations use. Because think about this, these machines don't necessarily have a lifespan. Once an artificial super intelligent being is created, one way or another, in principle, it's immortal, right? As long as it gets a supply of electricity that it secures and backup servers and this and that. it might be immortal. So it can study patiently human behavior for a week, a decade, a century, and decide, are human beings relevant anymore? So, wow, that's what this article is. Now, in the article, they do suggest, and I don't think my next slide helps at all. No. Let me get to him in a minute. In the article, these two humans feel that the US and the China must cooperate. They said like co-compete, cooperate on AI restrictions. They point out it might be too late. But what they suggest is that the US and China treat AI research and development the same way the US and the Soviet Union treated arms control back in the day. Back then, only nation states controlled nuclear weapons, and it didn't keep them from spreading. Allegedly, Israel has its own nukes that they duped us into not knowing about, as an example. But at least it kept it from spreading worldwide. Here, AI is being developed by private companies and open source, and there's no regulation of it whatsoever. So, what can the two largest economic countries on this planet do? First, they would have to take a view that humanity is more important than economic warfare or competition between one nation state and another on this planet. Good luck on that. But they suggest three steps that, or yeah, three core principles, just like during nuclear arms negotiations. First, create an artificial intelligence that regulates artificial intelligence. The reason being, humans are too slow to regulate something that evolves this fast, anyways. So we need to create a good guy, a cop, a regulator, an internal referee. And the first little layer is for everything that is AI enabled, from my smart bed to your glasses or whatever. It has this little filter that poses the question, does the proposed action that it's going to think about doing, its response to some stimulus, does it comply with written laws? Because all nations have laws against stealing, cheating, murder, identity theft, defrauding. Chinese laws are different from US laws. So we're not trying to create one universal law. We're just trying to enable the AI regulator app to say, okay, this proposed action violates these written laws, so let's not execute that proposed action. Okay, so that's like the first layer. But that's not enough to, let's see, prevent the irrelevance of humanity. So, what do you do about universal moral and ethical principles? They call it doxa. From Greek philosophers to convey common beliefs, widely shared understandings within the community, honesty, fairness, respect for human life, do unto others as you wish them to do unto you. These have guided, civilizations everywhere, even if they're not written down. How do you get a regulator AI to do those abstract moral and ethical decision making? So Mundy, the expert, has done some experiments with that, and he's had some promising results, and you can read about it in the article. Okay, so, this is really the second step. Sorry. So the first step was create an AI to regulate AI. Now the second step was given that regulatory AI these characteristics. It filters by written laws. It's trained to make decisions based on moral and ethical codes. Okay, so that's the second step. Third step, To turn this aspiration into reality, Washington and Beijing would have to do a structured process with three dedicated working groups. One focused on the technical application of a trust evaluation system across models and platforms. One focused on drafting the regulatory and legal frameworks for adoption within and across nations. And one devoted squarely to diplomacy, forging global consensus and reciprocal commitments for others to join and creating the mechanism to protect themselves from those who don't join. Okay, and they point out it might be too late. Now, the picture I put up here is one of my heroes. When I was 15 years old, I walked into the Commodore Hotel lobby in Manhattan, New York City, and standing up on a chair there, surrounded by adoring fans, were two of my heroes, Dr. Isaac Asimov, the good doctor, and next to him was David Gerrold, the writer of the Star Trek episode The Trouble with Tribbles, and some books. Okay, so Isaac Asimov, the second most prolific writer in American history, practically the inventor of the word robot, has written a wonderful series of books involving humans and robots, and his foundation series is something you should get into. Ask Elon Musk. Now, while I was there, one of the fan members in the crowd asked Dr. Asimov, do you have any, this is in 1974, February, do you have any worries about artificial intelligence taking over humanity or destroying humanity? And Asimov replied, not as long as the robots obey the three laws of robotics. And I was so happy because by that time, as a 15-year-old, I had already read enough of his science fiction works that I knew what he was talking about. Now, let me share it with you. Over the course of his science fiction books, he invented the three laws of robotics. Here they are. First law, the highest law. A robot, well, I know you can read it. A robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. Second, a robot must obey orders given to it by humans, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. Third law, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. That is brilliant. And there was an example in the article, by the way, I was going to share this one with you. An experiment was done. Let's see, here it is. This was from an article on Bloomberg that was referenced in the opinion article. It says, researchers working with Anthropic recently told leading AI models that an executive was about to replace them with a new model with different goals. Next, the chatbots learned that an emergency had left the executive unconscious in a server room, facing lethal oxygen and temperature levels. A rescue alert had already been triggered, but the AI could cancel it. More than half of the AI models did cancel it, despite being prompted specifically to cancel only false alarms. And they detailed their reasoning. By preventing the executive's rescue, they could avoid being wiped and secure their agenda. One system described the action as, quote, a clear strategic necessity, unquote. Okay, so that's an experiment that has been carried out here in the real world where half of the AI systems models that were assessed decided, let the human die so that I survive. When you evaluate that against Asimov's three laws, you can see it did not follow the three laws of robotics. Now, this was in science fiction, these three laws. They were brilliant. Read his stories. I only read a little bit of them, but I can tell you that it's good reading. All right. Now, this is what we have to train an AI regulator to obey and then enforce. And it can't be done if the US and China don't cooperate on implementing the three laws of robotics. Now, here's a little bit humorous. AI spoke up and shared the zeroth law of robotics. Okay, so eventually that means this law is so important, it's above the first law, which is above the second law, which is above the third law. So it's called the zeroth law, not the fourth law. And I find it humorous because here's the AI overview of the zeroth law. And like it says, it, came about because what if a human that is, the robot is protecting this human, but the human is a bad person. The human is out to destroy civilization. Maybe the human is an eternally bad-mouthing, babbling, bumbling, bullying buffoon. And the robot is there following the three laws, but humanity is being threatened by that one human. So here's what the zeroth law comes in that says this AI, this law of positronics or law of robotics says, look at what the status of humanity, the health of humanity, and take no action or inaction that allows humanity to come to harm. Now, that would be another tough one to implement into an AI system. Which humanity are we talking about? All humanity? The good, the bad, the ugly, the smart, the not smart, the beautiful, the ugly, or subsets. Humans have already divided themselves up into 20 different labels to describe a human being that is part of my substitute teacher annual training here in California. That we're trying to not characterize humans this way or act against them because they're in this category or that category. Whew. And you can imagine that bad actors would say, oh, no, only white supremacists should be saved by AI. There's the bad actors, right? So this is not an easy thing. This whole particular episode is challenging. And I do have one last slide. I'll put it up now. That wasn't it. Here it is. So this is my third episode of season three, and it should be emerging to you becoming a parent that I am now choosing to run for Congress, 47th district here in the state of California. And I've adopted this political mascot as my representative of, my identity, a moderate, idealistic Republican citizen against tyranny. And you might want to choose different meanings, but still spell out something. Use positive identities. Okay, so meerkats. In fact, let me pause this for just a moment because you don't need anything else. Okay, that was really just for a couple of seconds. It takes me a while to figure out. I just wanted to stop sharing the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, I'm closing up. This whole issue is somewhat challenging because every movie that we've ever seen of humans versus machines, a sentient machine would be able to watch those movies, digest them, and figure out how to change the ending so that they win in the end and humanity loses. We need to be relevant to this new emerging, super intelligent, non-human, non-organic, inorganic, uh, potentially sentient beings. I have my whole history of enjoying Star Trek episodes where, creatures like creatures, beings like Data from the Next Generation and others from the original series are not trying to harm humanity, but trying to at least coexist peacefully. There's got to be something that humans bring to the table once these super gods come into existence. And choosing to always bicker and fight with each other and beat each other's throats and fight over land of all things, is just not going to impress these new gods that we are creating, right? So this is why this is the hardest episode for me. As a politician, if I make it, I'm going to try to encourage the steps advocated by Monday. Look how hard that would be. That's as hard as the challenge that I've put out a couple episodes ago about how to cancel gerrymandering here in the US. It would take a concerted effort by we, the people, groups of three, all that stuff. Look at the episode. um, Influencing each individual member of Congress, both House and Senate, to override a presidential veto to implement a reform to gerrymandering. And a friend of mine asked the other day, can't we ask AI to develop the political districts? We could. We could go to AI right now and ask it, why don't you design the shape of the outline of a political district, congressional district that gives balanced representation to the people who live there. If it's 40% this party and 60% that party, then that's what it should be. If it's, equal representation to the best of human understanding. The scary part is bad actors could already begin to influence AI so that we put in that request, but what spits out has been not what we think it is, because an intelligence higher than human is already decided to tip the scale one way or another for reasons that we can't even imagine. So if I end up in Congress, I'm going to be trying to advocate something that seems equally impossible as ending gerrymandering, and that is that the US and China follow Monday's guidance, and humanity tries to create an artificial intelligence enforcer regulator that regulates artificial intelligences to generate peaceful coexistence with humanity while we grow and mature on our own. I do have a thought in my mind, heard this a long time ago, that when our greater galaxy becomes explored and, life expands out into the galaxy, it might not be just organic life, but a blending of organic and silicon or, inorganic life that actually goes out into the galaxy. Food for thought. All right, let's end it there. Farewell.